This is continuing coverage from WMAL.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4:37 on WMAL, continuing coverage of the verdict from Richmond in the Bob McDonnell corruption trial. If you are just joining us and you haven't heard the details of this, Bob McDonnell found guilty on 11 of 13 public corruption charges. His wife, Maureen, found guilty on 9 out of 13. For some perspective on this, we turn now to the great one, Mark Levin, heard here each night on WMAL. Mark, what is your thought?
Well, I did spend a little time with the Justice Department, and luckily not as a defendant, I might say. First of all, it's a lot of interesting things here. The businessman involved got complete immunity. So whatever he did apparently wasn't so offensive to the government that they felt they couldn't proceed. So they gave him complete immunity. Now, I am aware of no financial benefit or official benefit, such as regulatory change or some legislation signed into law, or even lobbying members of the legislature to benefit this businessman. So as far as I can tell, he didn't receive any financial benefit from the state. He didn't receive any regulatory change from the state. There was no effort to change any legislation or even present legislation by the governor's office to accommodate.
But what about this thought?
Well, I'm going to get to
about
this.
Corrupt intent.
Well, what is corrupt intent? I mean, here's the problem. I have no special brief for Bob McDonnell and his wife. I met the guy once on an airplane. Seemed nice enough. I think his taking of all these gifts was absurd. I mean, even the appearance. It's not. Forget about the law. I don't think it's ethical. Now, back to the law. What kind of law is it that says if you invite somebody to the governor's mansion or have a party for somebody in the governor's mansion, that's a quid pro quo? I keep hearing quid pro quo for what? A bologna sandwich?
Right.
I don't understand. What is the quid pro quo? The issue is official action. What people mean by official action is some action taken that benefits, like this businessman.
Yeah.
Well, what action? And I heard you guys begging the guy in the Richmond Times to tell you day after day. What did he get?
Right.
He got nothing.
So that's what I kept. Thank you, Mark, for pointing it out. I kept asking every reporter that was covering this, what exactly did Johnny Williams get from the governor?
I want to tell you something. Bribery is a state criminal offense in Virginia. I keep hearing people say, well, the rules in Virginia. Well, bribery or quid pro quos, cash for official conduct, these are crimes in the state of Virginia. He wasn't charged in the state of Virginia. I am not coming to the guy's defense. I don't pretend to know every aspect of this, but let's just step back a second. So he got no real official acts, but what sealed it for the jury verdict was when the judge defined official acts in such an extraordinarily broad way. And let me tell you something. Democrats and Republicans and independents are going to have to fear this, because now they're not really sure what an official act is. That's number one. Number two, the businessman gets complete immunity, and yet he's at the center of the entire thing, and the prosecutor's standing there like some great justice was done. Number three, as I say, the judge's directive to the jury, and there is a number four. He insisted, the judge, despite the request from the defense attorneys that there be two separate trials, one for the wife, one for the husband, he said no. Well, why did he say no? I mean, in this country, I've never liked these kinds of decisions by judges. Just because they're married, we each have a right to our own defense under the federal Constitution as well as the state Constitution, our own due process. And if defense counsel says, I need a trial for my client, not husband and wife, because their interests are not always the same, what, the resources of the court couldn't tolerate two trials? I'm just making the point. So that bothers me, too.
Yeah.
So I look at this. I mean, it's overwhelming. I think the judge's directive ensured that would be the case, quite frankly, because an official act is really anything, pretty much. But it is tawdry, all the gifts taking and everything else. It's absurd. But
Mark,
yeah, these jury instructions, I think, are going to really be scrutinized.
This sort,
but is it not an official act to have a discussion with a guy about a big loan that he's just given you, a $50,000 loan, and then some 6 minutes later you email an aide saying, I want you to come here so we can talk about issues that would be favorable to the guy who just gave you the loan?
What official act was taken? A discussion?
He sent an email saying,
No,
I want you to come here.
An email. Here's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
These are process discussions. Oh, he sent an email. Oh, they had a discussion. It's an official act that benefits the businessman. Sending an email and having a discussion, what came of it? Do you know?
Yeah, that's
No,
a fair
nothing,
question.
Nothing, Johnny. Nothing. That's
Nothing
yeah.
came. The whole point is nothing. Did the guy somehow enrich himself through some legislation, through an executive order, from some rule or something like that? Not that I am aware of. And I would tell this federal prosecutor, who's been around a long time, there's been an entire book written by Peter Schweizer on all the quid pro quo, as we call it, going on Capitol Hill, how legislation is introduced in exchange for donations. You know what they would have to do, Brian? Take a crime tape and wrap the entire
Yeah, you're absolutely
building
right about that. You make a great point. Mark Levin, that's why you are the great one.
Well, yeah, and listen, I know you're in the middle of show prep, so thanks so much for joining us. But you sound like you're raring to go. You're ready to start your show immediately. But you all have to wait, just like I will, until 6 o'clock today.
God bless. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mark.